This is Roberto Perrone.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Good evening. For the next hour, we'll discuss some of the week's biggest business and financial related stories. This is Radio for Grown-Ups. Tonight's panel, Paul Ryan, makes his first appearance on the programme. Paul, welcome to the show.
How do you do?
You're from improveonyou.co.uk.
Yeah, that's it. That's me.
And we will find out all about you and your business as we progress
Fantastic.
through the programme. Darren Eistead is the man behind Spitfire PR. Darren is from Hertfordshire and was for many years editor of several leading local newspapers. Welcome back.
Good evening.
And you have become a very trendy media type person. I
stop this now.
I could photograph. This is very suave. It's
We'll take a picture.
casual yet smart, and it's just very good.
Shall we tweet this?
Yeah, we can do. And completing our panel tonight, Jonathan Davis, wealth manager from Hertfordshire. He's also a broadcaster. Jonathan, welcome back.
Hi, Rob.
Some big story. Well, you were always a big Brexiter, so we'll talk that may make an appearance as we progress through the course of the programme. There is one fire extinguisher. We have the health and safety forms filled in. We should be okay. You can text 81333. Start your text 3CR, and if you want to put a question to the panel or challenge what they say, 03459 455 555. Paul, you are local, aren't you?
I am local. I'm from Berkhamsted. Yeah.
Berkhamsted, lovely Berkhamsted.
Jolly old Berkhamsted.
Okay. We have a kind of initiation process with newbies.
Right.
if you know, I'm going to take a picture of me. I'm in holiday mode. I'm more relaxed. You couldn't get Darren. If you know Paul Ryan, and there are any particular secrets about Paul Ryan you think we should know, you can text anonymously to 81333.
Hang on a minute.
Nobody
told me about this.
Did they not tell you that?
No, they didn't.
If you keep your money in a bank, if you can't keep your money in the bank, where can you keep it and should you be charged? The story here is that NatWest has warned business customers that it may have to charge them to accept deposits due to low interest rates. Now, if enacted, this would make it the first UK bank to introduce negative interest rates, in effect charging to borrow someone else's money. Darren Eistead, you have a company, it makes loads of money, but if you want to keep it in a bank, they're going to charge you for it.
I thought you were talking to me then and say you have a company that makes loads of money. Sorry, who are you talking to then? Do you know what, bizarrely, when you set up your own business, and I was looking up business accounts and all the rest of it, amongst some of the Google searches I did, one of them was, should I keep my money at home stuffed under the bed? Because you simply don't know about paying for accounts, etc. But this news today really is, it just makes you roll your eyes again and think, oh my God, the banks are at it again. Any excuse? You can't believe it. How on earth
we spoke to Jasmine Birtles, a consumer, and I said to her, if you actually sat down, you poured yourself a nice glass of malt whiskey, and you wrote down all the schemes the banks, all the little things the banks have been up to in the last 10 years, you'd finish that, you'd think, they're having a laugh.
Someone's sort of thought, oh no, we'll make Leicester, we'll let them win the Premier League, we'll get Wales to the semis of Euros, we'll let the banks come back again and charge people for having money in there. Someone's a scriptwriter who's having, I think it's completely outrageous, but one would hope that if someone does decide to do this, if NatWest actually do decide to go ahead with this, there will be enough other banks who have got, I was going to say moral scruples, that's probably pushing it, who won't be doing this and who will break the thing. But yeah, oh my God, banks again.
Before I unleash the Jonathan Davis on the Three Counties audience, Paul Ryan, what do you make of this story?
Well, I just think it's one of these extraordinary things, exactly going back to what you said. The last 10 years has been a catalogue of disasters, and I think this, particularly bearing in mind the amount of money that the banks were given to shore up when we were in real trouble, and they didn't come to our aid.
We weren't in trouble, they were in trouble.
Well, absolutely, they were in trouble, and now we're all in trouble, and now they're saying, you know what, we can sneak a little bit more out of them, and it's quite shocking. And Darren, what you were saying about, let's hope other banks show moral scruples. My fear is that when one breaks the barrier on this, they'll all just go through it. The dam will be burst, the genie will be out of the bottle, and we'll be racing to go to the bank that's charging us least. That's my worry.
All right, stand back, everyone. Jonathan Davis.
I said years ago we shouldn't have bailed out the banks. We gave them previously unimagined amounts of money. We borrowed from our future. They kicked the can down the line. They did not solve anything, and where we are now, 7 years later, of effectively zero interest rates, they're talking about cutting interest rates even further. And strange as it may seem, the NatWest here is actually being responsible because it's at least giving people notice of what's coming. We're going into negative interest rates, which people with mortgages are going to think, oh my goodness, they'll be rubbing their hands with glee, they'll be paying me to have a mortgage. Maybe, I doubt it, but it's possible. But people need to realise that we've had zero interest rates more or less for 7 years now, and we have no inflation. Going into negative interest rates will be actively deflationary, and an economic system based on vast debt hates deflation. The banks can't make money in a zero interest rate world. And that's why this is going to happen, that we are likely to be charged for our bank accounts. There is going to be another banking collapse. I couldn't say exactly when. My best guess is over the next 12 months. There's no way we should have bailed them out, and we shouldn't bail them out again. I'll tell you what will happen. I have to say this. There will be bank bail-ins like Cyprus in 2013. When the banks go bust, they'll be taking your money from you, and I'm not talking about 0.5%.
Okay. The consequences of this, I mean, we haven't actually resolved, you say, we haven't actually financially resolved anything. We just gave the banks loads of money. We've carried on. People haven't paid down their debts. In fact, probably if you look at all the new cars, we get these figures, say more new cars are being sold. Yeah, people have been taking out loans and paying 150 quid, 300 quid, 500 quid a month. We've all borrowed much more money. What could be the worst case scenario here, Jonathan? Because, again, we're back to square one, it would seem.
We're worse than square one because, as you quite rightly say, when we had the first banking collapse in 2008, they slashed interest rates from 5% to 0.5% in 2009, and as I say, they borrowed vast amounts of money and handed it to the bankers. So we're worse than square one because this time we've got the same economic situation and yet we've got vastly more debt. The outlook is not at all good, to put it mildly. We are heading towards recession as we speak, likely by next year. And the one thing that they can't do, which they have done for the last 40 years, every time there's been an economic problem, is they've slashed interest rates.
Okay.
They can't do it. We're heading for economic depression.
So where should the banks, I mean, where should companies who are cash rich, and lots of companies are cash rich, where do they invest their money, Paul? I mean, apparently I can't invest in, well, not I've got any money, but if I had, apparently I can't invest in fast cars, women and wine, my wife tells me. But where do these companies keep their money? Because if they keep it in a bank, it's going to cost them more money.
Exactly that. I mean, where do you place it? This is the interesting point, that actually it might be the best place to keep your money. I have a financial friend of mine, an advisor, and he said, you know what, it's so volatile at the moment, if you're only paying a small percent for them to keep your money, it might be that the banks are the best place.
Darren? I mean, people invest in your company, you've not gone public yet.
They should invest in what's under the bed at the moment, because I think that's where it's probably
But
probably
you've
going
got
to be
a very
safe.
springy cash
Yeah,
for your bed.
hello, there's all sorts. But yeah, I think people are going to be looking at alternatives. I mean, I think after the vote from a month ago, all of a sudden gold became attractive for people to start putting their money in as well. But I think it was quite telling in your interview from an hour or so ago that the banks are, they are begging for people to, they are trying to encourage people to spend as much as they can. They want
More
you
debt.
to be spending because they want more debt, which kind of backs up
I don't want
Jonathan's
more
argument.
debt.
But they know, but that's what they want because that's what they're thriving on. At the moment, that doesn't seem to be happening. So, it's kind of the anti the advice that we're given to be prudent and to save.
Okay. One takes, I'm sure the banks will blame Brexit. European banks are in worse condition than UK banks. We asked earlier on, we'll talk drones very shortly. I asked listeners what was the last thing you ordered online and did you need it delivered in half an hour? And Honest Tony says the last thing he ordered online was a drone. Marion says, Mark in Bletchley says, Rob, great to have Jonathan Davis back in the studio. All his fans are listening. And then Marion says, Rob, oh no, you've got that miserable pessimist Jonathan back. It's not an easy life. You now broadcasting, it's not an easy life. You've got to take it.
Well, it's good to hear that both of them are listening right now.
Paul Ryan.
Yes, sir.
New to the panel, and if you do know Paul Ryan, again, text 81333, start your text 3. So what is it about Paul Ryan that we need to know? Paul Ryan, what is your business?
So I was I was born an actor. I started performing when I was about 13. I played the Artful Dodger in Oliver, and I went on Dick Grangehill for a couple of years.
Get out
Yes,
of here.
it's true.
Who are you?
Well, I played a character called Pollock. Now that's with a P, and I was in it for 2 years. And I only had about 4 lines, so you won't necessarily recognise me. But I was in there with Tucker Jenkins, and do you remember Trisha Yates?
Oh, yeah.
Hello.
An interesting thing about Trisha Yates is she actually fancied me.
I'm just Googling now.
Wait, are you getting a Google up on Trisha? Yeah, so
I'm Googling you.
Oh, me? Oh, even better. So anyway, so then I went into acting full time and as a grown up, and I've been doing it since 1978.
1978, that's right.
Yeah. Oh, it's all there, is it? So you're double checking on me.
The internet has no mercy.
Oh, mate, I'm terrified. So I better make sure I don't make anything up after this. About 14 years ago, I took my second string to be a presentation skills
You were
coach.
in Series 5, Episode 3.
I was in Series 5, Episode 3. It's true. My goodness me, man. You're like laser. Absolutely. And that came on about 3 months ago. And it's always nice when you get on a bit of telly because people are taking photographs of you on the telly and tweeting it out. So you're current for about 3 weeks
So
after
you
the
were an
actual
actor,
TV performance.
and then you realised you needed a proper job.
Pretty much, you know. I mean, it's very, very difficult for actors. Most actors, I think 38% of actors, equity members, earn £5,000 a year.
Wow.
It's very, very tough for actors. There's only about 12.5% of actors that can actually say they earn a living purely through performing.
Yeah, but the ones that do rather well. I mean, tomorrow morning we're going to find out Tom Hiddleston's been voted Rear of the Year. I mean, you know, he's got it all going for him, that fella.
Well, I know, and I was very cross because I was up for it myself. I think it's something like, you know, that the absolute top echelon earn staggering amounts of money. Most of us get by. So anyway, yeah, robust second string, teaching presentation skills to corporates. I run my own private classes, and if anybody fancies coming along, keep your eye on my website. There's always information there.
And can you take someone, a business, you know, someone from the corporate world, because it's quite, you know, it is quite. You can be successful in your line of work, but then to stand on stage and then say, right, I'm going to present, or not on stage, but in a boardroom and present. For some people, it's not natural.
Well, I have to tell you, there's loads of people that do what I do, but that actually don't go into the corporate world and present, and I make an effort to do that. So I will teach, I will speak on the public circuit and go out into companies and give speeches, so that in a way I know whereof I speak when I'm teaching these guys.
When you were in Grangehill, did you snog Trisha Yates?
Did I? No. Well, now, what did it say on the internet?
I'm not going to tell you.
You're not going to tell me? All right, officially no, and actually no. I didn't get lucky, unfortunately.
I'll carry on Googling. Tonight's lovely panel, Paul Ryan, Darren Eisted and Jonathan Davis. You can text the programme 81333, start your text 3CR. Lots of messages. Rob, the problem with the banks and big business is the economic model. It does not work. We need a global solution, proper wealth sharing, and those at the top to stop stealing our money. Davis says, Rob, my economics teacher told us inflation follows deflation every 35 years. Get over it. We'll come back to these points. Now, gentlemen, Sir Philip Green, or as one newspaper called him yesterday, Sir Philip Green. What's he done wrong? Now, Sir Philip and others who got rich from BHS have been blamed for the retailers' collapse in what MPs called the unacceptable face of capitalism. A damning MP's report found Sir Philip, the billionaire former owner of BHS, extracted large sums and left the business on life support. The report also says his failure to resolve BHS's £571 million pension deficit was a major factor in the firm's demise. Of course, he sold the company for £1. MP Frank Field, co-chair of the BHS inquiry carried out by the committee, said Sir Philip should write a cheque for at least £571 million for the BHS pensions. Darren Eisted, he ain't going to write a cheque, is he?
No, and I think you ask what's he done, he's done wrong. I think he's probably got caught because he's done it within a system that actually, you know, I think allows him to do that. And
Legally, nothing wrong.
No,
Morally,
precisely. But that's it. That's a system that would allow someone to actually do that. And as you say, you're going to ask someone to write that cheque. They won't write that cheque because why should he?
Jonathan Davis.
I suspect he'll write a cheque for about £50 million, and he'll then have a glass of claret to celebrate because it will be a cheap cost to him. The idea that he's the first businessman to make a fortune from activities such as this is, of course, a total nonsense. Private equity guys have been doing it for decades. In the listed share markets, you can have multinational companies borrowing literally billions and then the following day going out into the market and buying their own company shares, and in effect, who are they buying those shares from? The executives and their share options. No, the full protests here from the politicians who have done nothing about the rules for decades, and then when it happens time and time again, pretend that someone else is to blame. They're merely deflecting blame. They're doing what politicians do all the time. They're trying to get re-elected without actually achieving anything.
Paul Ryan, I mean, legally he's done nothing wrong. He's used the system that's there.
Absolutely, and I think that's the point, is that when it talks about the unacceptable face of capitalism, we need to turn and look at that face, look it square in the eye and say, it's time you were gone, we've got to change the rules. He can stand there and deny it till he's blue in the face. There's 10,000, is it 10,000 staff, 20,000 people, that's 10,000 people whose pensions are likely to be eroded to near nothing.
Maybe they can have a holiday on his boat.
Maybe they could, it might be a bit of a tight squeeze, and he probably won't invite them. But, he won't be writing that cheque.
And the irony of all of this is that one of the big things that they're talking about doing against him, apart from writing a cheque, which he could probably well afford anyway, is to take his knighthood away. And his, the 99% of the population, it would mean nothing to them. So, but that's how he's got a knighthood.
I do have a little insight into this story. He covets the knighthood. Lady Tina, not so much. But he absolutely covers.
But what does that say about a system that allows someone to pillage that kind of money legally? He's not done anything wrong.
He was a government advisor up until last. He was advising the government on business.
Well, of course he was, and that's how he's made so much money. That's how he's actually done it.
Jonathan, we were having this conversation yesterday, and a lot of listeners got very angry with me when I was suggesting, look, when you look at things like the Sunday Times Rich List, when you see these people who have incredible, beyond wildest dreams, and I was trying to point out, these people get rich for a certain reason. They don't get rich because they're nice and caring and sharing. They just make money out of other people's, I wouldn't say misery, perhaps a strong word to use, but, they have a way of making money, and people are surprised by this.
There's no more free market capitalist in this room than me. And we should applaud the vastly rich Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Michael Dell, because they didn't get rich beyond dreams of avarice by stealing. What they did was they provided something that people wanted to buy. My problem, however, with the from the top 1,000, say, the next 900 after the top 100, my problem with the next 900, and indeed the million below that, is that they're in banking, they're in hedge funds, and they don't make money because they create and sell something that we need. They make money because of a thing called cronyism. They get close to government and central banks, and these guys just hand them left, right and centre. The bankers and the hedge funds would not be making the money that they're making if we had actually capitalism. And one simple example, capitalism is defined by if a business goes bust, you let it go bust. What you don't do, like in 2009, is bail the banks out. That's what we should have done, and that's why we don't have capitalism.
We hear this term hedge fund. I think we all professed it. What on earth does it actually... What is a hedge fund?
It is simply a catch-all term for people managing money for other people. That's in essence what a hedge fund is.
And how do you become a hedge fund manager? And is it too late for me?
You have brilliant contacts, and you have a means by which you can manage money and extract money from investors.
So people give you money.
Vast amounts.
The hundreds of millions, and you then go and...
You manage the money, and the standard charging structure is 2% per annum. Now, bearing in mind, if let's say you ran £1 billion, well, that's £20 million a year. 2% per annum plus 20% of any profits that you make. So if you made, say, 10% only profit in a year, 10% of £1 billion is 100 million. 20% of that is 20 million. So for managing £1 billion, you could take home £40 million. You have to be a pretty successful guy to do that, but there are lots of hedge funds doing that, and that is in essence what they do. The problem is, most of them are not doing anything really clever. That's the thing. What they're doing is just putting it into the stock market and borrowing some and putting more into the stock market. Stock market goes up, they make vast amounts. Stock market goes down, they don't lose a penny.
Darren Iceland, you formerly and for many years editor of several leading local newspapers. He was really good at his job. I was very, very good. Not because he was he was somebody once. He was very good. You now run Spitfire PR, your own PR agency.
I do indeed.
And just describe to listeners the kind of work you're involved with.
So it's PR and marketing with Spitfire PR. So obviously promotions for businesses through social media, through the press, and also hashtag publications as well. So looking at digital magazines and something which I think mainstream publishers, certainly publishing companies, just don't do now anymore. Don't do properly. It's all print, and now we're looking at promotion through social media. So hashtag Hearts and Town publications through that, and hashtag Bedfordshire coming to you in September as well. So we're expanding publications.
This, of course, gentlemen, is the BBC, and one has to be conscientious and everything else, and tick the forms and all that like. And I wish this lady well, and I hope she's returned to her family safe and well and intact. But it is a story of the mother-in-law of Formula 1 boss Bernie Ecclestone, who apparently has been kidnapped in Brazil with criminals demanding a ransom of £28 million. Now, reports from Brazil say that Aparecida Chinook, the 67-year-old mother of Mr. Ecclestone's current wife, Fabiana Flozzi, was seized in Sao Paulo on Friday evening. 85-year-old Mr. Ecclestone is one of the most powerful men in sport and is worth an estimated £2.4 billion. I'm not sure these kidnappers know how. I'm not sure what the business of kidnapping is, but kidnapping for mother-in-law is a new one on me. If you have wealth, Paul Ryan, should you hide it?
Should you hide your wealth? I think if you have that much wealth, there's absolutely no way you're going to be able to. I think he's so high profile. I think one of the things about this story is that he's such a controversial character, and he's slightly flawed, to say the least, in some of his private predilections, that people might not have as much sympathy with him or the story, or indeed the lady, as they might, were it somebody who weren't as wealthy and who frankly didn't have some dodgy...
Well, do you know what? He has transformed Formula 1. I mean, I knew Bernie years ago when he was managing Brabham, and he was, the Formula 1 was it was a great sport, but it wasn't. If we see the global brand that it is today, it's down to him.
I have no doubt about it. He's been absolutely brilliant, hasn't he? Unfortunately, the headlines, the more recent ones, are the more lurid ones, and this is just another kind of part of the soap opera, really. Do we know if she's been let go? Do we know?
No, she's apparently still kidnapped.
I mean, and the money that they're asking is astounding.
Jonathan, you get a call. Well, I'm not going to put you, but you are Bernie Ecclestone, right? And you get a call in the middle of the night, and they say, "Hello, it's the kidnappers. We've got your mother-in-law. We want £28 million." And you turn to your lovely wife, Fabiana Flozzi.
According to the report, his current wife.
That's right. There'll be another one on soon. And she says, "Who is that on the phone?" I mean, he's bound to say, "Yeah, wrong number."
Well, he's clearly a super intelligent guy, and he's a great negotiator. In that scenario, if I were him, I would probably quietly put the phone down and say, "Oh, it's no one, dear." I'd then call the cops, and I'd get their advice as to what to do. The last thing you're going to do is say to your current wife that her mother has been kidnapped.
It's an awful lot of money for a mother-in-law, isn't it? Darren Iceland.
It's not a great story, unfortunately. I thought there was a couple of interesting aspects to it. Firstly, and Jonathan might have a point or a view on this, is that they ask for sterling, so they want the money in sterling. So I don't know what that says about the current rate of sterling or the state of our market. And secondly,
it's better than Brazilian real. Put it that way.
I would have imagined so. And secondly, they wanted it in 4 plastic bags. So whether that says there's 4 of them and they're going to go in 4 different directions.
Well, of course that adds on 20 pence then, because every bag's that's £20 million and 20 pence.
But it might be a bag for life. So
that's true. Well, I can't afford it then, says Bernie.
£28 million sterling in 4 plastic bags.
Well, they said in 4 plastic bags. I don't know how the thinking, the minds, the brains behind all of this to take this woman, terrible crime. They've obviously thought this through, and now it ends up in 4
the Brazilian
bags.
Police, but then it's a question of does he pay up? Of course you're going to have to pay. Everyone loves their mother-in-law. £28 million is cheap at the price.
I think the fact, though, it was his current wife. Now, if it moves into former wife very quickly, as in the next day or so, then he may not wish to stump up.
We wish the lady and the family all the very best. Now they've warmed up, we'll do the serious stuff. Jonathan Davis, Darren Iceland and Paul Ryan are tonight's panel. Brexit. Now, one day we're told that life is good post-Brexit, the next there's a different tune. I mean, what has actually happened since that referendum decision a few weeks ago? Britain's decision to leave the EU has led to a dramatic deterioration in economic activity not seen since the aftermath of the financial crisis, says one particular group. But the trouble is, everyone's got their own take on this. Paul, were you in or out?
Oh, I was definitely in. My first instinct, you see, was to go, actually, do you know what? Stuff it. Let's go out. Because I think there's a lot of people who are feeling disenfranchised, a lot of people who want to kick back. There's a huge swell of desire for change, isn't there, globally? And my first instinct was to go, let's go for change. And then I thought, hang on a minute, we might not have got it right, but we're on our way to getting it right. Europe is still in its infancy. So much better to be a part of it. I think the campaign, the Remain campaign was all about details, and what it didn't give you was a sense of the feel-good factor of what Europe has brought to us. And there's an awful lot that it has. And I feel as well that what happened on the day after the day that we got the result, was somebody commented that Michael Gove, when he walked into the press conference, looked like a young man that had walked downstairs from having just killed his mother. They didn't know what the hell to do. They weren't expecting it. I was talking to my Auntie Hilda about it the other day, and she said it was a bit like a dog chasing a car. They were all excited. Once they got it, they didn't know what the hell to do with it. So the sense of pessimism was absolutely tangible. And my emotional response when my wife woke me and told me, she says, we're out. I was shocked, and I was unnerved in a way that I never had been before on a political issue.
For all those people who felt that sense of pessimism, there were other people who probably felt a sense of euphoria, Jonathan Davis.
It was an extremely pleasant surprise. I happened to wake up in the middle of the night about 5 o'clock, or maybe even 4:30, and as people often do, I picked up my smartphone and I just clicked on, and there was my emails, and there was an email from my mate in Australia who said, we beat one. And I really couldn't believe it. It's not at all pessimism, Paul. It's great surprise that we won against the status quo and the establishment. The opportunity now to be a democratic nation and to open up more to the rest of the world is absolutely fantastic. Of course, you can't make an omelette without scrambling eggs, blah, blah, blah. So it's not necessarily going to be incredibly smooth, but the outlook is fantastic. This survey, however, showing that executives are pessimistic, it's nothing to do with Brexit. That's absolute arrant nonsense. You don't suddenly turn pessimistic one day after being positive the previous day. It's absolute arrant nonsense. The reality is that in 2014 the UK had 3% growth. Last year we had 2% growth, and this year official bodies have been falling over themselves to reduce our GDP expectation for 2016, and that's why I say we're likely to go into recession next year. Okay. And it has nothing to do with Brexit.
But after that result, the world was still turning. Nothing really changed. I mean, what are we expecting to happen?
But what there wasn't was a sense of celebration from those that had succeeded. There really wasn't, and there was this bewilderment. Now what's started to happen, I think, is if you like, the good news might be starting to creep out the woodwork.
Some people were genuinely surprised that the British public voted to leave. I mean, if you understand the British psyche, then it was always going to be the case, because it's an island race. I mean, did you not see this coming?
Yeah, well, no, I didn't see it coming. But you know that feeling you get when you put £100 on a surefire bet and it doesn't come in, that kind of sick feeling in your stomach. Well, I did put £100 on staying in at 4 to 1 on, which went out to about 11 to 1 on, so I thought it was happy days. And secondly, yeah, I was in favour of staying in, mainly because this is what life is like at the moment, and actually I didn't feel that being in was a terrible life that we led, and we didn't know. You're asking people to vote for something which you've got no idea what it will be.
Whatever the Brexit process is, once they trigger Article 50, how much will actually change?
Well, but that's the whole point. You don't know. I don't know. There is this remarkable uncertainty, and a lot of people don't like uncertainty.
I know the French were playing silly blighters the weekend with one bloke checking everyone trying to get out of Dover. I mean, but that's the French being French.
That's by the by. You are swapping what you know now, and also, as I say, what we have at the moment. We're part of a European grouping. I think it's the signals that it sends out are very negative signals as well, and we're swapping it for something which we really don't know.
Jonathan, what's this? I mean, we've got our own problems in this country, but this is, there's a Great Britain. It's not, the name is there for a reason. The banking situation in Europe, I mean, Germany apart, and I think they've got the rest of Europe, isn't it teetering on the brink financially?
Well, you're from Sicily, as most people know, and the Italian banks are the epicenter of global financial earthquake happening right now. It is accurately estimated that they have 445 billion euros of bad debts. It is of the scale of the banking collapse in America 8 years ago, and of course America is 15 times the size.
Okay. But if the banks in Italy go under, there's a problem there. Well, because we were never part of that. I mean, does Germany?
We are part of it. We're absolutely part of it. We have a bigger global bigger banking system than any country in Europe.
We wouldn't have to bail them out, would we?
You say that. I actually don't know the answer to that. I simply don't know. But I'll tell you, we will very likely, I'm afraid to say people need to get to grips with this, we will likely have another Lehman's moment when Lehman Brothers suddenly went bust in October of 2008. We'll have another one, and it will set off another economic shock globally. I don't know from where it will start though.
It's curious.
It's a bit grim, isn't it? Well, it's fascinating to meet you, but I have to say my heart is sitting heavier in my chest with every word you utter.
Listen, the world will keep turning. Whatever happens, the sun will keep shining occasionally.
thank God for
It will
that.
rain.
It will do, but
We'll still have to pay our taxes. Life goes on.
But one of those things, one of those great phrases you get is the control. And I've had discussions with my dad, who's in his 80s, and he loves it. He loves being out, and all of that entails. And he's delighted that he's got control back. As a number of people have said, there's always been this statement, we've now got control. And you want to say, well, just what does that mean? You tell me what that's going to mean today, next week, 5 years time.
Well, actually, Darren, we don't have control back because we haven't exited the EU yet.
But it will happen.
Well, I certainly hope so.
I'm fascinated because there are people who've sat in these chairs, other panellists who are campaigning for a second referendum, and I'm thinking you are just deluded. There will not be a second referendum, but Theresa May clearly was for Remain, as was Philip Hammond, the Chancellor of the Exchequer. However, you've got Boris Johnson, David Davis and Liam Fox on the, shall we say, the foreign affairs side and the getting out of the EU side. So we will see how it develops. However, I suspect it will not be as clean a break as those of us on the Brexit side would like. And once it happens, once we officially...
I hope we do.
And we will. It's not. I mean, it's nothing. So it will, and apart from the end of days, it will happen. Will there be other countries that will think, hang on a minute, look at what Great Britain have done. Because if they put this, and the Italian government won't do this, but if they had a referendum in Italy to leave the EU, Italy's out. If they had the same in Spain, Greece, they're probably... So all you've got left is France, which is financially, it's got its own problem, and Germany.
They're all toast. Germany, although it's an economic superpower, it is economically toast. Their banking system is beyond repair. There's no question about that. Deutsche Bank, the largest bank in Europe, including the UK, has so many liabilities on its balance sheet. It has 55,000 billion euros of liabilities on its balance sheet, and that's just one bank. So the whole banking system is toast, and that is what's putting us into deflation and ultimately, I'm afraid to say, economic depression.
Steve says, Rob, EasyJet, Thomas Cook and others have issued Brexit profit warnings. Are they using it as an excuse to cover bad business? Could it be that, if you've got bad news, you can just hide under Brexit?
You can use it as an excuse, can't you? But I know that on Facebook, the day after it was announced, a local businessman William Young tailors, friends of mine, they just said, well, look, 4 guys have rung up, cancelled their suits. So on a grassroots level, things stopped moving straight away. Now, they had those orders in. They can't blame anything else other than people coming in saying, sorry, mate, we've lost complete confidence at the moment. We're not going to buy a suit.
But that's
what happened.
uncertainty. Uncertainty isn't necessarily based on fact, because at the moment there has been no fact, and throughout the whole campaign there wasn't a fact for staying in or a fact for actually going out.
Does it worry you, Darren?
I did, yeah. I genuinely, I had a conversation with my nearest and dearest, and who she voted to actually leave. And the first phrase I had, and I had this for about the next couple of weeks, and I heard it from other people, was, "What have you done?" And it seemed to be a current thing. No. But so in all seriousness, it was, "What have you done?" In all seriousness, and against that, it was great. I've taken back control, she said as well. But yeah, I do have a genuine concern, and I think, as has been said, there is this grassroots feeling that actually we've got to draw our horns in, and whether it is because of the banking situation, it's not because of Brexit.
Yeah.
Who knows?
It cannot be just one thing. But I know as well, to add to this, somebody across the road was about to sell their house. That stopped. They can't move. So there's immediate.
Won't it come back again?
Oh, I think it will. I think definitely things will start moving. But I do think we need definitely more positivity, more good news, more about what we can do instead of what we can't. Or what we can no longer do
is export to the rest of the world. We can import agricultural produce from Africa. For decades we haven't been able to because of massive tax tariffs by the EU. I'm not suggesting, and no one should, that Brexit means nothing at all. But all I'm saying is it's one of many economic catalysts which have been rumbling for quite some time. Even bigger than Brexit, assuming that it's big at all, is that America is heading for recession as we speak. And secondly, China is slowing down, the 2 biggest economies on the planet.
And if that happens, how do we stand? How do we fare in all this? On our own 2 feet in this little island of ours?
Well, we are part of the global economy. We will go into recession. They will not be able to slash interest rates, which is what they've done, as I say, for the last 40 years. I'm afraid it will create great difficulties. But at least we hopefully will be an independent nation, and we'll be able to make democratic choices as opposed to having decided for us by unelected bureaucrats in Brussels.
One text says, Rob, yesterday I read that one mayor in an Italian town was thinking of crowdfunding for some money because his town was broke. Well, yes, if they paid their taxes, and not just in the last few years, but if they paid their taxes for the last few decades since the Second World War, they wouldn't be in this problem. The trouble is that some southern Mediterranean countries have enjoyed a very lovely lifestyle in the sunshine, taking it nice and easy, retiring at 40 on full pensions and not paying any tax. The chickens have come home to roost, I'm afraid. 9. Paul Ryan, Jonathan Davis, Darren Eisted are tonight's panel. Gentlemen, we have spoken, a lot of people had their say on this afternoon, about drones and Amazon testing these drones that will deliver something you ordered online within 30 minutes. Darren, I said, do we need this?
Yeah, why not? I heard your fantastic programme, and I heard you talking about this. What on earth is wrong with drones? You look at Fritz Lang, was it 1927 with Metropolis?
Yeah.
Everything was going on in the air. Everything was taking place, planes, cars, everything else, above ground, below ground. I think it's just, it's 100 years late probably.
Wasn't that the Wombles? Overground, underground,
sorry, I gave you too much there. absolutely no reason why we shouldn't have drones. If they're safe enough, what's the problem?
But does anyone need something delivered within 30 minutes?
Yeah, of course.
Really?
Yeah.
Give me an example. A takeaway.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's pizzas, wasn't it? They wanted to try out dropping pizzas off via a drone. It's interesting, because I'm a bit of an old curmudgeon and I'm quite averse to change. And when you just said, why not? I thought, you know what, actually, why not? What's wrong with it? It's quite exciting, isn't it? We've got to keep moving forward. And if that's where technology's going, why not give it a go?
Yeah, when we get the sun back, you'll be looking out on a sunny summer's day across the 3 counties, looking at it. Well, I can't see it all. What's that? Oh, the sky's full of drones.
Well, there is that, of course, if there's that many of them out there. And like you say, of course, the safety element is paramount. Have there been any accidents reported yet with people getting their heads cut off with drones, delivering pizzas?
Sincerely hope not. Jonathan, do we need drones that can deliver something within 30 minutes?
the consumer will decide the answer to that question. It's not for me or Amazon or a politician to decide. But I think we have to applaud the authorities here that they're embracing change, technological change, as opposed to being Luddites as they normally are. And great that it's happening in the UK, which will make us a world leader in this particular technology. I don't know where it's going to lead us to, but I will make the point, if it so antagonises everyone, no one will use it. And if it's something we want, then everyone will use it.
Shouldn't we be concentrating on getting these big tech companies to pay their full tax rather than worry about helping them out with their drones?
Absolutely. I'm the first to say that. It's absolutely an outrage that they can make billions of pounds of profit in the UK and not pay taxes on business done in the UK.
It's 11 minutes to 7. Does who you know matter more than what you know in 21st century Britain? This is a story that's been put together. And I'll tell you what's fascinating about this is the people who are behind this survey, and they're suggesting that there is still a culture in Britain that who you know is more important than what you know when you're trying to carve your name and your way in your career and your work. The thing is, it's been put together by the Prince's Trust. The irony is not lost on me. So does who you know matter more than what you know?
I think certainly it does, and it depends on what echelon in society you are, but if you're the little man, if you're the sole trader, who you know, create your own network. I do a lot of networking. In fact, I wrote a book about it, how to network your way to success, and it's all about creating connections to people who know other people. So if you're isolated, if you're a sole trader and all you're doing is sitting in your office at home and you're not meeting people, no one's going to know who you are, where you are, or what you're doing. So on the grander scheme of things, I think it will work just as well. It's all a question of, can you create the network? Because of course the point is there are those that are disempowered who can't get out there.
But if your parents aren't well connected, how on earth do you? Forget that. How do you really? Because Jonathan's talking about hedge funds. Those people are all connected. They all know each other. You don't get into that because you're good. You get into it because you know someone.
And that would take time. But I do, from a local point of view, talking about young people getting jobs and how do you get on the jobs ladder, even in the smallest way. So in the old days, I had a milk round when I was 11, and I was working as a waiter when I was 15. Now, health and safety means you can't do any of that stuff. You've got to wait till you're 60.
Which milk round? Which group?
He was a milk monitor in Grange Hill.
Listen, I delivered milk for Unigate, the top act.
Oh, well, I'm afraid all I can say was Buckton Dairies, all right, and they ran over my foot with a float. But the point was, you can have adventures there. Now, actually, for my kid who's 15, we went onto Facebook and we said, got a guy here, wants to do some local jobs, and people came in contact with us and he's got a couple of appointments. Now, they're not going to pay him lots of money, but he'll get experience and actually he'll meet people. So you never know where that will lead.
Jonathan, does who you know matter more than what you know?
It certainly matters a lot, but the individual who has the right drive, energy, nous, street smarts, does not really need to have that leg up. Certainly, if you have all those things and you've got connections, then it will help. But you don't need those things. You don't need connections. What you need is the right skills and aptitude. And it's amazing how people will flock your way and help you if indeed it gets them something in return.
This was a report by the Prince's Trust, which I just said the irony is so sweet. Darren Eichstead.
Yeah, I think there's probably three elements to it. First of all, there is who you know, which does help that boost. I'd agree with Jonathan, though, that equally, if you have got that sort of drive and ambition, then you will succeed. I think the third key thing as well is opportunity. And certainly from my experience with the media, as a sort of trainee journalist, I started on my local paper purely because there was the chance to do some sort of work experience, and that went on for 2 or 3 months. Someone left, and in those days I was just offered the job because a reporter had gone, and I was taken on as a sort of junior reporter. So having those opportunities, and even as I left the Comet, people were still being taken on to do work experience for a week to get a feel, those kind of people who wanted to get into the media. So if you can sort of sniff out those opportunities, and presumably BBC is the same in terms of radio and television, they're tough, they're very difficult to get hold of these opportunities, but if you're determined enough to look out for them, then I think you can go all the way.
Paul, where can people find you on social media?
Oh, you can go to @ImproveOnYou for my Twitter, ImproveOnYou for my Facebook page, and they can go onto my website, www.improveonyou.co.uk, where you'll find a whole host of stuff. If you are actually in the corporate world, or you've got a presentation to give, go on my website. We don't, but just go on it and see some videos. They're free.
Jonathan Davis, where can people find you? Because there are people listening with a lot of money. I want to invest it with Jonathan because he's good.
Oh, in which case, call me immediately. And you can find me on Twitter at Jonathan Davis, where the O is as 0, and from there you can find my website.
Mr. Eisted, Spitfire PR.
Yeah, www.spitfirepr.com, and on Twitter, the hashtag publications, hashtag hearts.co.uk, and hashtag hearts on Twitter as well.
Sean says, Rob, I think the Samaritans may be called after tonight's show. Hang on. The economy is doing all right. There's breaks, but it's not that bad, is it?
Well, I was just about to say, this sense of rising optimism or moving away from the pessimism. But, we're hearing some very interesting stuff tonight, which does give one pause for thought. But do we give in to the pessimism? Can we wrestle it? Can we do something to take it forward? And I have to say, I was very encouraged by your notion that there are markets out there that we haven't been able to tap into, and now we can. And it's that kind of good news that we need.
No question. But, the big picture, real, live, existential global economic issues, unfortunately, are rarely discussed in the mainstream media. And what I went through about the banking system, about the China slowdown, America going into recession, the fact that the UK is slowing down, where do you hear this in the mainstream? You don't. And that's really unfortunate. What do you think, Rob?
I don't think it's going to be that bad. We'll always survive. We'll always do well. I mean, look at society. We do rather well in this country. I have great hope for Great Britain. Always have. I mean, compared to other countries, I think we can always, whatever comes our way, we will somehow overcome.
That I will totally agree with, but unfortunately, we are part of a global economy, not just because we're an open economy, we're all part of a global economy, and the global economy, it is a simple fact, is slowing down and has been for 2 years.
Darren, give us some good news. It's not that bad, is it?
Good news. I think in terms of
football season's about to start. Your
beloved
Stevenage Borough.
That's far more interesting. Borough coming ahead of Luton Town once again. But no, on that serious note of the economy, I do think, and it's not a pro, it's not an in or it's an outer thing. I just think that that nothing was clarified about what the benefits of staying in were going to be. I don't think, we still don't know what being out means as well, in which case you can't blame the media for not really giving a great précis of what the current state of the economy is, because I think no one seems to know, and I think that comes from the government down. I think
a couple of stories, but we just won't have time for them. We've been looking at stories this afternoon about a man who's been fined in Luton for carrying 800 kilos of basmati rice in his car. The police first stopped his car when they saw it weighed down by the 40 bags of rice, and advising the vehicle was dangerously overweight and he should split the load. He didn't take the advice and was stopped a second time. I think police were being very generous with him, and he was fined £300. The man told police he bought the rice for a good price at a local cash and carry. If you come across something that's good, that is a good price, Paul Ryan, should you just snap it up?
Definitely, and get a lorry. Buy the rice, get a lorry. Absolutely. I'm all for bulk buying.
That's an awful lot of rice.
It is an awful lot of rice, but I bet he put a right pudding when he was caught.
Why don't we give that to, for a film, if we give that to a paperback writer, they might be able to turn that into a film script.
What would you stock up? If there's a good price, what would you stock up on? He has a fine stock of French brandy, I've got to tell you.
Oh, really?
Mr. Jonathan Davis, they're very nice.
I think there is an impending trip to France coming up, so I think there's going to be some fine wines.
Will they let you in?
I'll wave my press card.
Oh. Jonathan, what do you stock up on apart from money?
That's funny. Well, I'll tell you what, I recently went into Poundland. Big mistake. Because I came out with two basketfuls of stuff. You can't not. It's just so enticing. Where's he going?
What's he getting?
A Poundland bag.
But not you, Jonathan. The great Jonathan Davis. You in Poundland.
We were walking in Harlow, and we had some stuff to get, and we saw this stuff in the window and said, come on, let's just pop in and see what there is. We couldn't stop. It was just fantastic. We loved it. Soap, games, toiletries. It was just amazing.
This is just great. I mean, look. This is a CD CD holder.
I've thrown away 3 of those yesterday.
Who doesn't need an air duster in their life?
Well, you have to.
It was there. I thought I've got to have an air duster.
You have to.
What else?
How much did you spend in total when you went
It's
in?
like £7. And I legged it out of the shop thinking I'm going to get out of it before they catch up with it. It's like a steal.
And you needed a truck for that, didn't you?
Panel, thank you. You've been absolutely amazing. Thank you to Mr. Paul Ryan. He almost got to snog Tricia in Greyjoy. Thank you to Mr. Darren Ison. Thank you to Jonathan Davis. You can catch up with it again on the BBC iPlayer. Gentlemen, you have been very entertaining.